Okay, welcome everyone, and welcome to today's session. In the last session, we demonstrated and learned about the home menu. We looked at the clipboard, font, reschedule, and hierarchy groups. We also learned about how to develop a schedule for a typical RC frame superstructure. There were a few tasks that were given. I hope we have completed those tasks, and we've had them given to the various mentors to review. In today's training session, we would learn about the rest of the home menu tools in the Power Projects interface. We will also learn about the task, insert, progress, and editing groups of tools. Therefore, by the end of this session, you would have learned about all the tools in the home menu. Now, this understanding of these tools is sufficient to put you in a very good position in the role of a project planner. So, because those are the most common tools you will find yourself using as a planner. So familiarizing yourself with those tools are very crucial. So the learning outcome will be, number one, we will learn how to manage activities, change activities types, assign costs, and resources. We will also learn to use Hammock, create recurring tasks, insert tasks between two activities, and use text annotation. We will learn how to apply progress on activities, and also learn how to easily make changes to your program. The task group comprises of tasks that is used to manage activities. I believe we've established that previously. We can also change activity types, assign costs, and resources. So this group you see at the top level there, that is so that's the group we're inferring, so that's a make into, assign, split, and join. That's what we're referring to as a task group. Okay, so the first set is to make into, the first set is the make into set of tabs. So there are sub tabs under those tools. So you can see, like I've always said to you, when you're looking at Asta Power Project ribbon, and you see a task with that arrow there, then you need to know that there is a sub task within that task. Okay, the same thing, like you have assigned there, there's a sub task there. Under the split and join, there's also a sub task. Okay, so now once we'll look at the make into, and so in that make into set of tabs, what you'll find is there's the tabs under that make into will allow you to configure a task bar as a milestone, a summary bar, expanded bar, Hammock, buffer, and interruptible tasks. You can also revert to the normal task bar from any of these types of milestones. Now, I will just quickly show you the program, and we will begin to demonstrate how these tools work. So sorry, I'm basically moving from one screen to another, so just in case it goes off and on. Now, the start milestone, like I said, we're going to demonstrate that. I've basically shown some activities there which will help us to to demonstrate. Now, a start milestone. Now, let's quickly go to the home menu there and then look at, so this group of tasks here is what we are referring to, okay? So if I come to the make into, you can see, though it's grayed out at the moment, the task, start milestone, finish, summary, expanded, Hammock, buffer task, and interruptible, like I've said previously. Now, the moment I click on one example there, so I say example A, which is activity A there, and I come here, you can see that is all now highlighted, less the task, because this activity is actually a task as it stands. So because it's a task, the task option is grayed out. So what we want to first demonstrate is the start milestone. So let's assume we want to make this activity a milestone. You know, all you need to do is to click on start milestone. Okay, so that turns that activity into a milestone. If I turn my auto reschedule on, you can see it's pulled everything back. So now what is a start milestone? This milestone assumes that the start date of its successor, you know, and as, okay, sorry, this milestone assumes the start date of its successor. So basically, a start milestone and the successor start date is usually the same. That's what it's saying. You can see there the start date, which is the 4th of May, and then activity B, which is the successor, is also starting on the 4th of May. So what a start milestone does is it assumes the start date of its successor and also assumes the date of the next working day of its predecessor. Let's assume that you make another activity a start milestone between two tasks. Say, for instance, activity C. I click on that activity and I want to make it a start milestone. If I click on start, what I'm saying in effect is, while this start milestone, which I've just introduced in line 5, will also assume the start of its successor, but however, activity 4 is its predecessor. So it assumed the next working day of its predecessor. So the bottom line is, as long as you are referring to the successor, a start milestone and a successor has the same start date. But a start milestone will take the day after its predecessor. So while this is finishing the 24th of May, activity C, which is a milestone, is starting on the 25th of May. Okay, and a milestone is actually a 0 day. Okay, so the other way to make, if I change this back to 3 weeks, for instance, let's assume I convert it to a task. Okay, and I change this back to a task. So you can see I've just changed it back to a task now. Now, by default, when you create an activity, it assumes a 1 week duration. So you can make that change later. Now, if I want to change this to a milestone without necessarily coming here to say start milestone, I can just put 0 days there. 0, oh, sorry, completely forgot I'm using 2 systems. So that'll be 0 days. Okay, so you can see that. The same thing for activity C, 0 days. So 0 days tasks are actually milestones. Now let's confirm if that is a start milestone. So that's a start milestone because it's grayed out, and that's a start milestone. So that's basically what start milestones are. Now let's look at a finish milestone. A finish milestone assumes the finish date of its predecessor. So it's just the reverse basically, and assume the date of the previous working day of its predecessor. So let's use activities E and G, which is line 7 and 9, for instance, to demonstrate. So if I make this a finish milestone, and I make this a finish milestone, what happens? So what I'm saying is, so you can see the predecessor, which is activity in line 6, and that milestone there in line 7 they have the same finish dates. So you can see the finish date of activity D and the start or finish of activity E, they are the same, 15th of June, 15th of June, all right? Then for the successor, the same thing for this as well. If you're looking at the predecessor, so 29th of June, 29th of June, 29th of June. But in terms of the successor, which is this one, it takes the previous dates, okay? It takes the previous date. So basically, when you have the 15, that becomes the 16. So it just is switch around, you know, between the finish milestone and the start milestone. Now, the start milestone, in practical terms, what it's used for is when you are indicating the start of a crucial stage of work or a project. And then the finish milestone is that milestone you use to depict the completion of a project or a crucial stage of work, okay? So that's basically what the difference is. Now let's go on to some other part of that, you know, make into, which is the summary and expanded bar. And we'll also look at the Hammock, okay? Let's go back here. So now talking about the summary and expanded activities. So a summary task are useful for grouping related activities together without having to move activities into sub-bars. I believe we've treated sub-bars in the last session. You recall there, when we say move bars into charts in the part 1 of the home menu. So in case you've forgotten, go look back into that video we had. The discussion around move bars is there. So yeah, so if you don't want to use, and I remember I mentioned to you guys that this is actually an expanded bar in every respect. So when you say you move bars into charts, you're actually creating an expanded bar. So if you don't want to do that, you want to use a summary bar. So in effect, the summary bar and expanded bar are basically doing the same thing. What it's doing is moving a group of related activities under a single banner. Now, the difference between the summary task and the expanded task is that the summary tasks are expanded in situ. So when you say it's expanded in situ, it's expanded within the program itself. However, the expanded bar, the expanded task is that are expanded in sub charts. So it's not expanded within the program itself, but expanded outside. I will just quickly demonstrate how that works. Now, for instance, if I want to make put all of these activities here into a summary, I could just make this, for instance, I could just make this a summary bar by clicking on it, and then again make into, I'll select summary, okay? So I'll click summary. So that will create a summary bar, but that doesn't put these activities under the summary bar. So you could highlight all of those activities and indent. Remember, we treated indent in the last session. So once you indent, it pushes all of those activities inside that summary bar. So that's an example of what a summary bar is. So now once you summarize or you fold it, you can hide those activities under that summary, you see? And you can click on that button there, which is the plus button, to expand. So you fold and expand with the summary. Okay, now that said, now you could also decide that this summary, you don't want to make it a summary, you want to make it an expanded bar, or you move bars into charts. So you could then come into make into and you click expanded. So that will make that bar expanded. However, like I said, you can't open this within this program. When you open this, it's going to open a new program for you to show you the details of those activities under the expanded bar. So if I double click, for instance, to open it, what you'll find is it takes it completely off from that program. It takes you outside that program completely. Okay, so so to go back, you could come here and go to your project view and then click on program there. So that takes you back here. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say it opens outside the program. Okay, however, you didn't need to. So if I convert this back to a summary, okay, see, it's back to summary, and within the program itself, you can actually view those activities, you know. But for an expanded bar, you can't view the activities under an expanded bar within the program. It will open it separately outside the program. And for you to navigate back, you need to come to your project, your program project view to select the top level hierarchy there. Okay, now let's quickly touch on Hammock. Now, just before then, let me just okay. Now we made reference to the Hammock in our last session, and we said that you recall that I said this particular 3 tabs here, add to Hammock, remove from Hammock, and Hammock members will not be treated in the part 1 when we looked at the home menu. We said we're going to treat it when we're discussing Hammock in the next part of the home menu. Now, so pay attention, because when I come to the insert group, I will not be referencing Hammock anymore because I would have already discussed it here. So now talking about Hammock, you could, what are hammocks? Let's start with the Hammock definition and look at what they actually represent in a program environment. Now, hammocks are similar to expanded task and summary task, except that number 1, Hammock summarizes individual tasks, whereas expanded task and summary task summarizes whole bars. So what that means is, in the Hammock, you could have non-concurrent or congruent activities fed into the Hammock. But for a summary and expanded by the activities within the summary and expanded bars are related and are in sequence. So you will find, for instance, these activities here, you can see they're all linked together in that order. All right, that's what the summary and the expanded bar does. But for a Hammock, you really don't need to have them in line like that. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Let's convert this to a Hammock. This is a bar, so let's convert it to a Hammock, make it into a Hammock. Okay, so once you make it into a Hammock, it assumes that's 0 duration because there's nothing inside that Hammock as yet. Now, let's assume I want to move this activity B, into the Hammock. So because I've created a Hammock in the program now, you would notice that that tool is now highlighted because the program is sensing that there's a Hammock. All right. So if I click on that tool, add to Hammock, it will generate all the Hammocks in my program. So I want it to be added to Hammock A, activities A Hammock, that's there. And then I'll click OK. So once I do that, that activity is fed into that Hammock. Can you see that? Now, this is just a mirror image. It's not, so any changes you make on this activity would affect that activity as well. Okay, or any changes you make to this activity will also move that activity. So if I, for instance, let me turn off my auto rescale. If I move this forward and I put it here, so you can see that movement as well in the Hammock. So the Hammock is only reflecting that activity which is in line 12. It's not the activity itself. Okay. However, be careful, because if you make that change there, all right, it also affects the activity there. All right. So just be very careful how you manage or tamper or modify information in your Hammock, because that would affect the main activity itself. So I'm just going to go back and go back one more time. So that's basically what a Hammock is. If I want to add the activity in line 16, for instance, again, I'll click there and add it to the Hammock. So you can see that those two activities, even though not uniformly in line with themselves, though not following themselves in any particular order, could go into that Hammock. That you can't do with a summary bar or an expanded bar. For instance, I could also come here and say, well, I want to add this activity to the same Hammock. Then I would say this, and then I move that into the Hammock. So you can see that activity is there. The same thing you can do, you can fold that Hammock and you can open it or expand it, okay? So this is very useful when you want to do a trades filter and you want to show the overall duration of a particular trade that has different activities happening across the program. All you need to do is do a filter for that particular trade, select everything and push it into a single Hammock. That will tell you the overall duration of that particular trade, how long they will be on site for. Very useful if in case you don't use it. It's something I will advise you guys to learn how to use. So yeah, that's Hammock there. Then I think I've basically said some of the things I wanted to say that differentiates a Hammock from a summary or expanded bar. The point number 2 is when you summarize tasks using a Hammock, the tasks are not moved from their original position in the chart, So that's number 2. Number 3, Hammocks are purely summaries. They do not own or contain subordinate tasks, like I've said, unlike expanded task or summary task. And you can use Hammocks to store summary information for tasks which might be unrelated in the chart or projects, or projects. So Hammocks are sometimes known as roll-ups because the values of the task within the Hammock, just a minute. So the values of the tasks within the Hammock are rolled up into total values which are stored in the Hammock, right? So that's basically what a Hammock is. Like I said, it's a very useful tool. Now let's have a quick look again. Let's assume I make this into a Hammock just to emphasize the use of the Hammock again. So that's the Hammock there, and let's assume I push this activity into the Hammock. Now you then notice that there are now 2 Hammocks shown on my Hammock list. Now I then need to select Hammock for activities B. I click that Hammock goes there. I can scroll down and pick these 2 activities and add them to, if you don't want to use that button, you can right click on it and click on add to Hammock. You can select that as well, and it goes into the Hammock. So if you scroll up, you can see the Hammocks are there. The activities are in the Hammock. Again, you can summarize and fold up those Hammocks. Now, that said, how do you remove an activity from a Hammock? Now, remember, let's come here. Remember that's activity B. If you select this activity, it will select the relevant activities within the program that it's representing, okay? So if I want to remove this, I don't want this in this Hammock anymore, that's a mistake. I could just select that and select remove from Hammock. So that knocks it off completely, okay? I can knock this off as well, and I say remove from Hammock. So that takes it off. So you can remove, don't delete, because if you delete it, what you're likely doing is deleting that particular, so keep an eye on that. That's the activity there. If I just say delete there, what I've done is I've deleted that activity itself. So you don't delete, you remove from Hammock. So it's something you need to keep an eye on. All right. So you remove from Hammock, don't delete. If you delete, you're deleting the actual activity. So remove from Hammock. So that knocks off every of those activities from the Hammock. Then there's one other tool here, which I wanted us to look at, add or remove task to or from the selected Hammock. So if I click on these and say, let me add a few more activities there just to make it a bit more useful. So let me push this into the Hammock B. Hammock B, okay? So that's our Hammock B. We are saying we want to select that Hammock there, and you can search the activities in the Hammock, okay? So that's Hammock B. So if I click on this, sorry, interruptible. Yeah, so basically when you do this, what it does is it shows you all the activities, just a snapshot of the full program. And you can see all the tick boxes there. So activity A, let's put it here. So that's activity A, that's tick, that's under the buffer, that's ticked. Okay. So that's under the summary bar buffer. So you can see that summary. If I click on that, I can't click because I have this selected. So under the summary bar, there you have activity A, and that's what we've moved into this Hammock. So you can see under the buffer summary, there's an activity A there, which is shown to be under the Hammock. There's activity G, ticked, and then the buffer or terminal flow ticked. So you can see those last two are all under this buffer summary. Under the interruptible summary, which is not shown on this screen, if I scroll down, you would see there is activity E and activity F. Plus, you can see those two there, E and F, which have been pushed into the summary. Now, what this also does is, if I now want to select or add other activities to that Hammock, I can say, for instance, I want to add activity B and C, these two activities here. If I want to add them, so I'll just tick it and tick, and I click OK. So you can see now they are added to that Hammock as well. Okay, so that's basically what you do with those three tools, like I said in my last session that we're going to have a discussion about. Now, let's move away from Hammock and look at buffer tasks. Okay, let's look at buffer tasks. Now, just before then, let's show this content here. So what's a buffer tasks? Buffer tasks are also known as contingency tasks. So basically, when you're running a project, you cannot you can't cover all your all unexpected issues that may arise. As much as you plan, as good as you may be in planning for anything, you cannot completely cover all the ground. So sometimes things happen which are beyond you, which you didn't plan for. So what you do with buffer tasks or contingency tasks is to make allowances in the program to mitigate any unforeseen circumstances. That doesn't mean you can predict anything, because we can't play God in a project environment. You know, how's the Almighty that knows, you know, everything A to Z? But we are all humans and very limited in knowledge and understanding. So as much as you may deem yourself an expert in anything, most often than not, things will always happen which are beyond you. So in a project environment, how do you mitigate for those challenges and to ensure that when they arise, they don't have a knock-on impact on your program? So what you do with to do that, so to mitigate those unforeseen circumstances of have a contingency plan, is to introduce a buffer into your program. Now, sorry, I'm just gonna admit this person. So buffer tasks are also known as contingency plan, like I've said before, and they can be used within the projects to protect important dates and reduce excess float. Buffer tasks which do not have float instead shrink or expand in size as required without moving beyond their finish dates or the start dates of successor. There are two types of buffer tags, obviously. There's a buffer tag which is called a project buffer task. So the project buffer task is allowed within the program itself. And it's used to protect the finish date which you specified. And then, sorry, I repeat. So the project buffer task is used at the end of the project, not within the project. So it's used at the end of the project and is used to protect the project's finish date. Then there's the feeder buffer task. The feeder buffer task is used within the project and is used to protect the start date of a successful activity. I'll give you a quick example. Now, let me see if this is made a buffer. So it's still it's a buffer task. Okay, that's fine. Now, okay, so you can see that, let's demonstrate the feeder task first and foremost. So you can see this activity D here. There is this one activity there. If I open this up, you'll see. So there's this one activity there, which is called a feeder buffer. Okay, I've introduced that as a feeder buffer. Okay, now what happens is I have a fear that activity C may likely be longer than 2 weeks, but I'm not so sure. Now, to protect this start date, to ensure that this start date of activity D is not delayed unnecessarily, I then introduce a buffer that, okay, even if this delays, that buffer is what consumes and that's what consumes that delay from activity C without impacting the start date of activity D. Okay, now let's quickly demonstrate. Let's assume that this man is delayed by, say, that amount of time. Okay, and I'm going to just apply a flag there, start on, and I'm going to reschedule it. So can you see what has happened there? So that buffer, that task has now reduced to how many days? From 1 week to 2 days. Let me go back again. So you see, so that was 1 week before, and after rescheduling, it is now 2 days. The start date of activity D remains the same. That's not impacted. Now that is the whole idea of having that buffer task there, that if there's a delay to this activity here, that buffer task is what consumes that delay without impacting on anything else. Okay, so that is one instance in terms of buffer task. Now, there's one that is called the buffer, which is the terminal float. So the project buffer is used, like I said previously, at the end of the project. Let's assume that is a project. That's everything we're talking about here is a project, and that's the finish date there. Okay, to make this a buffer task, I'll select this and then come to my, please note that this one was already made a buffer before I started using that to illustrate. So I'm now going to show you how to make a task into a buffer. So I will select that, make into a buffer task. Okay, so you can see it's changed color automatically once it's been changed to a buffer task. Now, once that is done, now let's see what happens. Now, don't forget that what we want to do is to protect the finish date of this project, which is the 8th of November, 2021. Now, if assuming that this man is delayed by maybe a week, now keep an eye on that duration. The buffer duration is 6 weeks. Let's assume I delay that man by a week or so. Let me move it. Okay, so you can see that that reschedule that has happened has now reduced my buffer from 6 weeks to 5 weeks without impacting on that end date. Now let's reverse the process and assume that this is not a buffer task, and you can see what will happen. Let's make that a task. So this is back to a task. And I delayed this by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what has happened? Your finish date has moved from the 8th of November, I think that it was, to the 15th of November, telling you that your finish date has now gone out because there was no buffer to protect that finish date, because this is assumed to be an activity. Okay, so to minimize the impact of delays on your finish date, you use a buffer. So again, I'm going to change this back into a buffer and delay this by 2 weeks. Yep, delay this by 2 weeks. So see, your buffer is reduced from 6 weeks to 4 weeks. Okay, so that's basically what the buffer does. It protects that finish date for you and ensure that you are not in delay unnecessarily. In practice, in a project environment, any program you develop should have at least 10%, between 5 to 10% duration. So when you finish your project and you have 100 weeks, you should have, after you've calculated 100 weeks of the overall duration, you should then have 5 to 10% of that 100 weeks added to that 100 weeks as your time risk allowances or time contingency in your program. So if you add 10 weeks, 10% of 100 weeks, that will give you 10 weeks. Okay, so that means your terminal float should be somewhere between the range of 8 to 10 weeks, which is acceptable, so that any delay that occurs on critical path is accommodated by that buffer. Now, let's quickly touch one last one, then we will look into, we'll take some questions, okay? So the last one we're going to look at is interruptible tasks. What are interruptible tasks? So interruptible task is used to mitigate the challenge posed by introducing a start to start link and a finish to finish link between a predecessor and a successor. Now you remember we looked at logical dependencies, I think several weeks back now, and we did talk about finish to start dependencies, start to start. Now imagine that you have an activity like activity C there that has a finish to finish link and a start to start link. Okay, now this is perfect. That is possible. You could have a program or a sequence and logical dependency displayed like that. Now the challenge is when you now want to reschedule, and the program is calculating your rescheduled parameters to determine what delays are on your program. What you find is the program is conflicted, not knowing what logic should take precedence, if it should use the finish to finish logic or to use the start to start logic as precedence. Now, it's just that confusion it gives. So in some instances where you have this sort of link in your program, your calculation of delays may not be exact. There may be some errors, which you may not notice. Many people may not really notice it. So to mitigate that, you introduce that the task as an interruptible task. In all honesty, I don't often use that sort of linkage or interruptible stuff. I just wanted to just show you guys and explain it to you. Now, yeah, I said the challenge is the fact that the program, because of the start to start link and the finish to finish link between the predecessor and the successor, especially where the two activities are unequal. Don't forget that this activity is 2 weeks, this one is 3 weeks. Where they are unequal, especially when they are unequal, that's when that happens. Now, during reschedule, as I've said, the program is conflicted, not knowing what to use. So That's just basically what it is. Now, to mitigate that, you make this an interruptible task. So when you make it an interruptible task, what then happens is you can see the color has changed as well. It then, even though it's 2 weeks program activity, it stretches it out to a 3 weeks activity. Okay. However, when the program is doing its calculation and you're doing progress reporting, it treats that 3 weeks as a 2 weeks duration. Okay, it will treat it as a 2 weeks duration. Even though it's showing 3 weeks, it treats it like a 2 weeks duration. That's basically what it does to ensure that there are no errors in your calculation. Okay, and like I've said previously, to change to a task, you can change that back to a task if you want to. Make it a task. You can see changing it to a task straight away makes it a 2 weeks. All right, so the program recognizes it as a 2 weeks, but on the face value of it, it's a 3 weeks when you make it an interruptible task, which is quite interesting. Right, so and then you can change from a buffer task. I think I've shown you guys before, from a buffer task to a task if you want as well. So that's basically covering everything under make into. Any question? So please unmute yourself. If you don't have a question, I'm going to ask you guys questions.
Yes, I have 2 questions actually.
Okay, Harry.
The first one, concerning the buffers. If the buffer exceeds the time that you've allocated as a buffer, what happened? Because you didn't give us that as an example. So
Yeah,
where you have like 6 weeks, or in that example on number 36, on line 36, the buffer period is 4 weeks. What if the task preceding it, is it preceding the right word? What if activity G, for example, ends up taking 6 weeks rather than 4? What happens to the...
So what you're asking basically is if your buffer is consumed, what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. Second question?
Second question is concerning the interruptible. When you rescheduled it and it was showing 3 weeks, I'm thinking to let's say I've submitted a report to you and you're looking at it and you're obviously not going to unconstruct it to realize that it's 2 weeks. How do you, the person receiving my schedule, know that? I know you can tell from the color change that it's an interruptible task, but how do you know the period of time it's actually supposed to take?
Okay, let me answer the first question. Thank you, Harry, for those very good questions. Now, the fact that you're protecting your finish date does not mean your finish date cannot go beyond its finish date. The whole idea is to ensure that before you start reporting bad news, the project is way ahead. You know, so most often than not, most projects go beyond their finish dates, unless where that finish date is highly constrained. Say in the case of what was that Olympics game just completed in is it Tokyo? And there's a stadium that is supposed to be finished to allow for the Olympics to go ahead. So the Olympic date the start date is set. So meaning that any project that is going to facilitate the Olympics must be complete, you see, before that. So that means that date is highly constrained. So meaning that the project team must do everything in their power, put as many resources as possible into and plan that project properly, that date is not crossed. However, it is possible that that date goes beyond. Now, let's assume for any reason you have that date, that activity delayed there. So you can see in this instance, your buffer is completely consumed and that date has now gone out. So when you have a project buffer, your finish date only go out after that buffer is completely consumed. And again, thank you, Harry, for that question, because that is very spot on. So now you now have 0 days there. So any delays after the consumption of your buffer will directly impact on your project finish date. So the whole idea is before, what in practice again, and I'm happy we're having this discussion in practice, For instance, in my organization, what I've done for my ops director is to do a report that shows a percentage usage of the buffer. So I believe, if my calculation or my memory still serves me right, that any consumption between 0 to 40%, I think it is still within okay, it's fine. That means we can still, keep moving and hoping that we'll get everything back on track. But anything above 40%, so that still shows green in my report, in my traffic lighting. Anything above 40% means that it is amber. So between 40 and I think 70% is amber. Yeah, I believe between 40 and 70 is amber. So meaning that caution, and that means that that particular project gets flagged to the relevant construction director that we are delaying at a very rapid rate, meaning that there's a threat to our finish date. Okay, and we need to start looking at mitigating measures, and he needs to now step in and begin to ask the right questions from the site team to know what the issues are and how to correct it. So anything beyond 70% is red, and that gets flagged to my ops director to say, well, we're in a huge danger here of our completion date. We need to do something to bring it. So then the pressure really mounts. So the construction director does not want anything flagged to the ops director as an issue, you see. So once it gets to amber, he's finding ways to mitigate the issue, And then, of course, the construction manager who is flagged with the green, the fact that we're in delay, does not want to get to amber as well, because he doesn't want the pressure from the construction director on himself when it gets to amber. So that sort of mechanism, in practice, the way you manage a buffer. And I hope that answers your question, Harry. Now, onto the interruptible. Like I said, the program sees this as 2 weeks, but then when you make it interruptible, it changes to 3 weeks as per the predecessor. So it assumes the duration of its predecessor. Okay, that is not, when I say 3 weeks, it doesn't necessarily have to be 3 weeks. So it just assumes the duration of its predecessor. Now, what you could do beside the color change is, if there'll be questions around why is that 3 weeks, not 2 weeks, by whoever is looking at your program, you could apply an annotation, which I'll be coming to shortly, is that completely forgot I'm using computers, so I need to come back here. So note, this is an interruptible task of 2 weeks. Okay, so that you can leave on your program. Okay, and anyone looking at that task would know that though it's showing as 3 weeks, it's actually an interruptible task. Does that answer your question, Harry?
Yes, it does actually. That does.
Any further question?
One other, but based
I was
on
hoping we
answer.
Can we let others ask first? Then, if there's still time, we can take one more from you, Harry.
All right,
Any other question from anyone here?
Yeah, sorry. Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Yeah, yes, Michael, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want to just for referencing purposes, what example in real time is an interruptible? What can you give us an example of an interruptible task on site, or possibly what task would you say is possibly interruptible? Because normally I think things are kind of concrete usually when they know what they're doing and they set a time for it. But what would you class as an interruptible task really?
Okay, you cannot class any exact activity as interruptible on site. What we mean by interruptible is just a programming term to describe an activity that has within your program that has got a start to start and a finish to finish with not equal duration with its predecessor. Again, let me do this task. Okay, so that's the task there. It's got a finish to finish, a start to start link and a finish to finish link. And its duration is not the same as its predecessor. So the predecessor has got 3 weeks and this has got 2 weeks. So that is to mitigate the challenge when you do your reschedule, because the computer will be confused to know if he should use the start to start as the preceding or the overriding link, or the finish to finish as overriding link. That's when you change this to an interruptible. And the whole idea of making this an interruptible task is to assume the same duration as its predecessor for the purpose of rescheduling. On site, there's no such activity called interruptible task. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, and it's just there to, it's sort of a weird buffer in itself that both actually, to allow for the computer to allow both tasks to be simultaneously running at the same time.
Correct.
And, both links are still active, start to start and finish to finish.
Absolutely, that describes it. Thank you. Okay, any further question? Harry, I'm just mindful of our time, so Harry will take the last one from you.
No, just more clarification on whether sometimes you can start a project from the finish and then work your way towards the different tasks that you're setting, because you want to initially figure out whether your program allows you to meet that finish date, and then that allows you to understand and realize where better resources can be allocated, or whether more resources are needed. Okay,
thank you for that question. And now in the academics, in terms of the theories of planning and scheduling, when you start reading and you're looking at things like network diagrams, Gantt charts, any academic material you pick up to look at Gantt charts, network diagrams, bar charts, and scheduling in particular, what you would normally come across would be things like forward pass and backward pass. So with the terminology forward pass is when you determine a project's completion from all the succeeding activities before that finish date, okay? But that's not always, even though it's the most common way to do scheduling or programming, it's not always the case. So like I said, in the case when I gave that example of the Tokyo Olympics and the need to build the stadium, you could use a backward pass when you know that you have a constrained finish, okay? Now, from a constrained finish date, you could work your way back to determine when your earliest starts of that project will likely be and how to resource accordingly. So that instance is called a backward pass in terms of scheduling. But in most cases, what you find is a forward pass where activities of the finish date of a project is determined by, building activities, successor, what I'll now call is a predecessor activities leading into that project finish date to determine its finish date. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Now let's move on to some more interesting things. Right, so let's look at the next group of tasks, which is the assign. Okay. Right, so you use the assign tab of the options dialog to specify a number of options that affect the way in which your task, code, calendar, resources, and cost centers are assigned to a task. We will limit the training to resources, task code, and calendar assignments today. And in practice, these are the key allocations you will be required to do anyway. We'll do more on resource allocation in week 13. So we'll be doing more detailed resource allocation in that week. I think with the speed which we are going, we may likely bring it earlier than that. Cost loading, perhaps if we have time, we may touch it, but you have a dedicated commercial team on site who does all your cost management. You may not be needing that, but in my organization, I am currently taking a lead in terms of doing some cost loading as a way of sense checking the cost performance as reported by the commercial team. Okay, now let's have a quick look on the program and see how that is gonna play out. So that's assign. So we'll use this series of activities here as to demonstrate how to use the assign. Now you see here, tools here are the things we're referring to as assign. So if you come here, you can see assign permanent, assign consumables, assign group, assign cost, assign code, assign calendar, okay? All of these, okay, let me select this so it's highlighted. So everything here, assign permanent, consumables, and group, all relates to resources, okay? When you refer to a permanent resource, you are referring to either a human or equipment resource. When you're referring to consumables, you're referring to materials, maybe bricks, water, electric consumption, and all that, okay? That's what it is. Now, sometimes you could create a resource that combines both permanent information and permanent resource information and consumable resource information. For instance, you could say, let's assume you have a bricks as consumables here, and then you have a bricklayer resource, and you're saying, okay, for every bricklayer, assigned, you want him to spend 350 bricks per square meters, okay? When you create a resource like that, you can put it under a group, okay? So when you create a group resource, what you are doing is combining both permanent and consumable resources under one single resource, which is perhaps a very good way to not duplicate resources, but like I said, we will not be going into all of those details. What we'll be treating today will just be a permanent resource. And then hopefully in week 13, we'll be looking into the detail, of how all of that works. And again, I mentioned to you about cost. We won't be treating cost. It's just something out of the scope. We'll look at code libraries, and then we'll look at calendar, all right? Now, I'm just going to go quickly to the Library Explorer. Now, I'll be treating the Library Explorer at a later date because that is where you'll find some of the settings in the program. Now, under the Library Explorer, you can see down here, you have what is called permanent resources here. So there are different folders containing different information or allocation. So if you are treating cost, that is the cost folder. If you are treating code library, that's the code library folder. We'll come to that shortly. If you're looking at calendar, that is where you manage all your calendars. Then we'll talk about consumable resources. That's it there. Talk about permanent resources, So yeah, that's basically what it is. But we'll look at the permanent resources. I've created something already. You see here, you have RBC resources. So you can see I've created David as a resource, Emil, Harry, and Jacob. If your name is not here, doesn't mean I don't like your face, okay? It's just that I was short of time. Now, let's add, just to show you how this is created, just click there, and then you can type Michael. Oops. I keep forgetting that I'm using two computers. So Michael, so there, okay, and you can color code that. I don't know what's your favorite color, Michael, but I'm going to guess you like something red, okay? So you can color code it there. So now take note, because I'm going to allocate these individuals to these activities here. So those are permanent resources. Let's assume these guys are working for Remsbar Consulting, and I want to allocate this activity here. I want to say, well, Jacob, you are taking responsibility. You are managing these activities, and I want to put those put Jacob resource there. So all I'm going to do is to come to my my permanent resource. Can you see my project view there? So that's my permanent resource. I'm going to come there, and I'll go to, you can see my RBC resource is shown there. I'm going to click there. Then I'll drag Jacob and put on activity A. Now you can see the color has changed. Remember, that's Jacob there, and Jacob is Mr. Purple. Right, so I'm going to put Michael in activity B. That's Michael, and that should change to red. I'm going to put Emil in activity C. I'm going to put David in activity D, and Harry in activity E. So you can see how the color coding has changed, you know, as per the allocation. Now, if I come, ignore what I'm showing you now, but we'll touch it much later. If I turn on my resource, yeah, that should be one of these, I think. Not that. Yeah, so if I turn on my demand allocation, scheduled allocation there, you can see that it's allocated each of these. Despite the color coding, it's also showing that there's an allocation against each of these activities. Okay, now I'm going to turn this off, and then there's a view which I've created here. Again, don't bother about all of these details I'm showing you. There's a view which I've created here for resource. If I come here and I go on to, let me summarize all these. Okay, I'm on the top level. So if I come to my assign, you can see by default that is showing there, you know. So my table is created as well. You can see each of the people I've allocated as well. So this software is a very interesting software because, I mean, if you're really into project management, it gives you several options to play with, okay? Okay, now, if I want to see a histogram of how this allocation is playing out, I can come here and I come to my RBC resources and just tick that, okay? And so you can see the allocation there. And I want to see, yeah, that's my allocation to date. You know, so it's 1, 1, 1, 1 across board. Okay, let's assume I add a double. I want Jacob to work 2 times than he's currently working. So again, I'll go to my resource, permanent resources, RBC, and I'll allocate Jacob. So you can see that resource has now gone up from 1 there to 2. Let's assume I want, okay, Jacob is not doing too well. That's why I increase his number. However, and he's still not doing too well, and I now want Michael to support him. So you can still allocate Michael there as well. So you can see suddenly in that period, I'm using 3 resources, okay? And then eventually when Michael now starts his own work, I want Jacob to also support him there. So that builds their own resource to 2. So you can see that with the histogram, you can easily demonstrate and show how many men on sites you've got if you've done a proper resource allocation, okay? And to give you a very clear idea of how many men you need on site. And let's get back to our home page. So that's that on resources. Now let's have a quick look at, what's the next one? At code. Unfortunately, my code, the resources have shown some coding. Now, what the code is it differentiates activities from activities, you know, depending on the sort of code you apply. Now, I'll come back here and I'll go up 1 step, 2 step, and I'll go to my code library. And I'm looking for, okay. Sorry, 1 minute. I'm just trying to check what setting I'm using here. I had RGB code, RBC codes there. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not sure. Let me see. No. Okay, I didn't set up a code for these, but that's fine. We can always improvise. Okay, right. So now what are codes? You use code libraries to color code your bars, task, and allocations so that their appearance represents something relevant to you. So again, just as portrayed here, the resources color coding differentiates a Jacob from a Michael, from Emil, from Harry, and David, So each of them has got. So if I'm just looking, I can see clearly what the color codes are, So you can see that there, Jacob is purple, Michael is red, So that's basically what the color coding is. And there are different types of color codes. As you can see, these are just resource codes, color codes that are shown here. You could specify colors for specific activities, say by trades, Let's assume activity A and B are going to be managed by the same trade. Let me assume, yep, so okay, yeah, that's fine. Actually did a color code by the name activities. So let's assume that's activity A, and I'm going to put that there. You can see the color code has changed. That's activity B, and that's activity C. That's activity D. That's E. That's F, and that's G. So you can see all I've done here is that I haven't created this color code. So if you come here and you see activities, I probably need to name this RGB, RBC activities, okay? So that's what I was looking for earlier. If you open that, you can see all the color codes and the color setting that I've chosen, okay? If you click there, you can see there are different patterns that can be selected, all right? So since you've got your Asta Power project, please play around with all of this in your spare time. So basically that's what it is. And there are a lot of things you can do with color codes. We'll be using this more at a later time, okay? Then we'll look at calendars. Now, if you're looking at my screen right now, you would see that there are some shading there. See that shading there between December and January coming down? That is the holiday period where construction is not active on site. Okay, that is the August 30th holiday coming down there for the year. That is the May holiday. So nothing is shown here because there are no activities here. If there are activities, you can see the other holidays in April or March. And of course, you see those for January and December here as well. Now your calendar must be configured to capture how, number one, how you work and your non-working. Okay, so just quickly, let's capture those details. Now, a calendar is a named record of dates that that defines when working or non-working times take place. Okay, so it's important that that is configured in your program. You assign calendars to tasks and resources within projects to define the time during which they are available for working. For example, you could assign a calendar that defines the hours of daylight to a task that can be carried out during daylight times or daylight hours. And you could assign a calendar that defines the hours during which a plumber works to a plumber permanent resource. Okay, so That's basically what a calendar does. Now, take note of that. And the default calendar currently shown in this program is, can you see that? Is LQ standard 5 days. LQ standard 5 days. You can name this anything you want, you know, so just name this. So the standard 5 days means they are working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So there's no weekend working, okay? Now, I've created one here that says RBC standard 6 days. So I've assumed I'm going to work on Saturdays as well. Okay. Now let's look at the calendar and see how it's currently configured. So I'm going to come to my calendar here, and I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to click on that and click on properties. So you can see that all the rates are my working days, all the rates. So for instance, the 2nd and the 5th are holidays. 3rd of May is a holiday. 31st of May is a holiday. All my Sundays, I'm not working. Now from the previous year, the 1st and 2nd are bank holidays. The last Monday of August is a bank holiday, that's 30th. Then I have shown here that there's not going to be any Christmas holiday. Okay, because all of these dates are all red. It feels like this project is constrained and I now want to accelerate and work 6 days a week. And I'm saying, well, damn Christmas holiday, I'm not going to allow anybody to go on holiday. We're all going to sit tight and get this job done. Okay, that's basically what that calendar is going to look like. Okay, now let's apply that calendar on the program. To apply the calendar on the program, you need to first and foremost go to the top level of your program, which is the home menu part 2, the top level. Then you select one of the activities, press Ctrl A on your computer to select everything. Okay, so once that is done, you then come here, drag the RBC standard 6 days and put it on just one of it, so it will apply to all of them. So I'm going to ask you this question, retain the existing duration and change the dates if necessary. That would be the ideal thing to do. So you click on OK. It's going to ask you a few other questions. Just select yes and yes. All right, so that is your calendar. So you can see now that my December period is completely off, beside the normal public holiday there, or I'm not sure what's actually showing there. You know, so that's blank. So you can see that box there. That box there is showing because there is no activity there. If I delete that, that goes. If I delete that, that goes. You know, so that's how you apply a calendar, or rather, that's how you configure a calendar. We'll treat more about how to configure calendar later. I've only just shown you how to apply a calendar. Okay. Okay, so I'm at the top level. Right, so let's go back to the program level there. Now, I think if I actually want to get rid of these, I could actually just come here and click on properties, because I think the property is still showing that there's a default date system there. No, not this one, sorry, cancel. Format bar chart. If I come to my, is it not working? Yeah, so my non-working, so you can see still showing L&Q standard 5 days. If I select this and change to RBC and I apply, so those boxes you have seen on those empty spaces will automatically go. As you can see, they are no longer showing, okay? So that's basically what it is. If I insert a bar there, you know, I won't show that box anymore. So any question on assign? Any question on assign? Hope I'm not loading you guys with too many information. We're making some very good progress today.
Rather in retrospect of the make into, you did mention that you don't usually use
Interruptible tasks.
interruptible tasks. What do you recommend that we get used to in terms of where we want to create a program?
I mean, the risk of your reschedule, a minute. The risk of your reschedule generating any error or not calculating properly is very minimal. I don't anticipate you have too many interruptible tasks in your program. That is one instance. Say, for instance, I changed that to a task. So the risk of that in your program is very minimal. I wouldn't really worry in terms of let it give me headache. However, if that is a real issue, then don't make this a status start, apply a lag on it. Okay, so you could do something like that. So that way it is saying to the program, well, this is started, but I'm not really going to start this man until that particular date, 8 days into the start of activity B before that can start. Does that answer your question, Emil?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, now let's go to split and join. Now, whatever I'm going to teach you here, don't apply it to any marriage life. It's expected that when you marry, you stick to your spouse, so don't split and join anybody, okay? Right, so let's split and join. In this case, activity is not a home. Right, now, when you want to split, sometimes you have an activity like activity B. Let me just quickly go to the next slide from my end. Okay, now, okay, there you are. So you use the split task dialog to specify the way in which the selected task is split into 2 separate tasks. Sometimes you want to split a task into 2 separate tasks, but you don't want to separate or differentiate them in any way, but it's still the same task, but you want to just break it into 2. You can use this dialog to split tasks at a specific duration, at a specified percentage of the duration, or at a specific date and time. Now, when you split a task, the task is divided into 2 or more tasks on the same bar. Please mark my word, on the same bar. So they're not 2 different activities, but the same activity being splitted. You can edit each task individually. The resulting tasks retain the properties of the initial task. For example, any resources or costs that are allocated to the initial task are allocated to the resulting task. Now, let's take a quick one and look at activity B. Now, activity B is, just 1 minute. Okay, so activity B, let's assume this is 6 weeks. I want to split it. So if you come here, you can see you can split. So when you use the first one, which is split, it will ask you some questions, okay? You can split duration by, split by duration, 3 weeks. That means it's going to break that into 2 equal halves. Or you can say 2 weeks, then it breaks it into 2 and 4 weeks, okay? So I click OK. That's what you get, you see? That is one activity, 2 weeks. That is another activity, is 3 weeks. So if you click on this plus button here, it will show you that split. It's the same activity, activity B, but one is 2 weeks, one is 4 weeks. Make sense? So I'm going to go back. Again, you could split, and you can split by percentage. If I want to do it 50, no, let me do 60. Or yeah, let me do 60%. Oh, okay. 60%. And click OK. So you can see, again, that is the 60% of that 6 weeks, and that is the 40% of the 6 weeks. All right, I'm going to undo again. Then you could split by date. So I want you to split when it's at the 27th of September. So I want to split when it gets on the date 27th of September, and I click OK. Again, you can see that by the 27th of September, it splits, and the next activity starts the next day, the 28th of September. Now, I can select everything and press Control. Sorry. No need. So just select one of it, and you can come here. Nope. Select the line number there, and you can join it. Something is wrong. 1 minute. Okay, sorry, I was pressing the wrong Control key. So you select the first one, press Control key, select the second split, and then when you come to split, you can join. So remember, I was doing undo earlier, so you can actually join as well. So again, let's try the other options. So you can split in half. Click on split in half. You know, again, you do that. You have 3 weeks, which is 50-50, okay? Again, I can press Control, select that, and then I join it. All right, oops, delete. So I can also split at link. So there's a link coming into this activity here. See that? So I'm saying that where that link gets to the activity, that's where I want it to split it. So I'll select that activity and I say split at links. So if there are multiple links, at every point where there are links, it splits that activity. All right. So that's it. That's it on splits and join. So I'm going to rejoin, join it back again into one activity. So that completes the task. That took so long. I didn't realize it's going to take that long, you know. Okay, any question on split and join?
Yes. Concerning split and join.
Can you speak a bit louder, Harry?
Hello, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, concerning split and joins, are they more likely to be used in times where you're allocating individuals to, you know, and for example, the resource example you gave us where you made Michael particular color, made me a particular color, would that be used in activities or project activities where you want to show that there's one task to be done, but one individual is heading one part of the activity?
I completely understand your question.
Yeah,
you could use that if you want to. What Harry is asking is that if I split this into, say, by percentage, and I use 60% there, and then I allocate David to that, and I allocate Emil to that. Correct?
Yep.
So something like that. Yeah, you could say, okay, I want David to be the one in charge of this activity, even though it's the same activity, but when David finishes, he passes the baton on to, I don't know who this is, Emil, you know. So that's basically an instance where that can apply. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next slide. If there are no further questions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question.
By the way, is hope Chelsea is winning Arsenal?
No, it's no.
0-0. That's strange.
Oh, actually no, they are. Chelsea are winning.
1-0 Chelsea, 23.
There you go. I trust my boys. See what sacrifice I'm making on watching my game, yeah? Okay, now let's go to the next one, insert group. Now, I believe we won't spend much time on this one. So the insert group, you know, that you can insert bar, you can insert Hammock, recurring task, text annotation. Now let's quickly demonstrate how that works. program. Okay. So insert recurring text annotation, etc. All right. So the insert group contains tabs that you use to insert bars, tasks, and texts on the chart. You can insert bars above or below existing bars in a project. So let's look at the first one, which is recurring task. Oh, no, before that, let's look at the insert bar. So you can insert bar, and basically what you're doing is if you select, just like in Excel, I think I've shown this to you guys before, I'm not so sure. Say I want to insert something between line 65 and 66. So you select the higher line number, line 66, and then you come to here and you say insert bar. Okay, so that inserts a bar above line 66, and you can then put a description there. Activity C1. Okay, and you can make that a 1 week activity, for example. Also, remember when I was inserting, I selected the line number above the bar I want to insert. Now you could actually select a line number and insert below it. So all you need to do is to come and you say insert below. Okay, so that will insert below that line number you've selected. Again, you can call that activity E1. Or you can select, let me make that one 2 weeks. You can select anywhere and you say, okay, no, you can, I think this you need to select the summary bar. You can select the summary bar and you say bar at end of summary. Okay, so that one will just create a bar for you at the end of the summary bar. Okay, and you can call that activity G1. Does that make sense? So that's basically what that does. Then I've discussed Hammock. You can also select that and click on Hammock. It will insert, it will move this activity, it will insert a Hammock bar for you there. You know, and you can call it Hammock. So you can call it Hammock 2. And you can move that activity inside the Hammock 2. Okay. So yeah, you can move all of that if you want to. You can actually move multiple activities if you press your Shift key and select them into the Hammock. You can summarize it. Okay. So that's basically what we've discussed Hammock before. Like I said, I won't talk much about Hammock again. Now let's look at recurring task. Okay, so a recurring task, you use a recurring task dialog to create a number of tasks or milestones that recur at regular intervals. For example, weekly meetings or monthly stock deliveries, or creating recurring tasks using this dialog saves you from creating tasks individually. Let's assume there's a particular task that recurs every month or say every week, and you don't want to begin to create activity for it every week. You could just use a recurring task. Let's assume it's a meeting, and that meeting is a milestone. Okay, let's assume what date is that? Every Monday there is going to be a meeting. Okay, and that meeting is going to be a milestone, just a meeting anyway, so just a milestone. So we're going to make into a start milestone. Okay, we're going to call it team meeting. Right, now if I select this, I can make it a recurring task, and I want it to occur every Monday of the week. So I'll click on recurring task. It's a milestone. and I want it to delay every 7 days. I think that should be, it's going to be every week. And I want the number of meetings to just be, let's just say 12. And okay, so you can see what has happened there. So it just creates that recurring task there. Now let's have a look at it. You can see if I click on that button and it opens it up, you can see how it's aligned. So the first one is on the 6th. Let's see if it's correct. That's not correct. I should have used 5 days. Okay. So I'm going to go back and recurring task and change this to 5 days. So I wanted to be sure. Okay, that's not right. It just added another one at the back end of that one. So I'm just going to undo and then create a recurring task again. And that's delay 5 days, and I want 12 occurrences there. So that's it. And if I click on that, so the 6th is Monday. The next one should be the 13th. That's 13th. The next one should be the 20th. That's 20th. The next one should be the 27th. The next one should be the 4th of October. So you can see it gives you that exactness, you know, in time. It doesn't have to be every Monday. It could be any, you know, differential, you know, in terms of the delay. So that differential is in the delay. So you indicate that differential in the delay there. If it's 5 days or 7 days. If it's every 7 days, you want that to happen, then in 7 days. If it's every 5 days. If it's monthly, you know, you could use every 1 month, you know, so that would be 1M. So let's try. Oh, I need to remove these ones first. And then let's create recurring task, and I want it every 1 month. And okay, so you can see how that is, you know, spread out every 1 month, you know. So October, the next one is the first Monday in October, next Monday in November. Then, of course, it's every 4 weeks by default in terms of every 1 month I selected. So by the 29th, you know, so it goes like that at every 4 weeks pace, okay? So that's basically what your recurring task does. And then the other time I use it, text annotation. And I say you could use a text annotation to add, you know, extra note on any activity you want. This is only a test note. So you can use that to add extra note. And how do you do it? Just click on the text annotation. Then you can see your cursor has changed to text. Move it close to the activity at the end of it. You can see that it tells you, it should give you that pointer in a rectangle. And then once that happens, click. It gives you a text box, and you can then type whatever you want inside that text box. Okay. Note that if you don't type anything in the text box, that text box goes away. All right, nothing is there. Right, so that is on insert. Any question on the insert group? So that we can jump into progress. Any question?
I had a question, but in listening, I forgot.
Oh, sorry.
Or no.
If you can, yeah, if you remember down the line, just let me know, and then I'll go back.
Thank you.
Right. Any other question? No. Okay. Now let's look at progress. This is going to be an interesting one, I believe. Go to the next slide. So progress, and let's look at that. So you use the progress group to quickly update progress on the program. Note, ensure you select the correct progress drop line before you add the progress. To progress a task, 1, select progress drop line. 2, enter the preset progress percentage, or type the percentage in the percent complete column. There are different options for entering progress, which I'll be showing you guys shortly. And then we have in the house today, Mr. Victor Weke, who will be sharing his experience with us for 5 minutes. Okay. Right. Again, back to the Library Explorer. I'm going to go step up and come to progress period. So I've created these progress periods. So the progress periods are periods of the week when you want to put progress on your program. So you must first create these progress periods or drop lines before you can, and then select the progress period you want to put progress against before you apply your progress. So that's what I was describing to you guys earlier. Now let's look at, so the very first progress, which is week 1 there, is going to be the 7th of May. The next one is week 2, the 14th of May. That's 1 week apart. Week 3, the 21st of May. So basically, I'm doing a weekly progress report. If it is 2 weekly, you need to allow 2 weeks apart on your drop lines. Okay, now let's select the very first one. Home. So progress report, let's select week 1. So you select week 1 there. So remember the color code, week 1 is red. So you can see Electrosoft or Asta uses a lot of color coding, which is really very, very useful because it helps to differentiate all the various components of your program. So that's week 1 there. And I'm saying that, okay, before then, let me change this to a buffer, make into a buffer task. I'm not sure if I baseline this Mr. Didn't. Let me just quickly create a baseline. Okay, projects, manage baseline. Yep. Baseline. Embed it. Next. Next. So set as current. Close. Okay, so where we go? Right. So that's, yep, that's our baseline. Okay, so let's assume that on this week there was no progress. Okay, there's no progress. So your, like I was saying, you put your percentage here, not the percent complete column. Or the other option is you can come here and there's a preset percentage listing there that you can put, okay? But we're going to assume there's no progress there on that week. And we're going to reschedule it. We're going to reschedule and click on progress period against that week 1. So what that we do, it will straighten and push it out. Don't forget that there's a buffer there. That buffer is accommodating our delay. Now, on week 2, we're going to come here and select week 2. You can see our progress drop line has changed to green. That is week 2. All right. And then let's assume we have made 20% of progress there. So having selected 20% there, you can see 20% is also shown in that cell. Okay. To check what the delay impact is on your finish date, again, you reschedule. Against that progress period, against week 2, click OK. So you push this out, and you can see how the delay is as compared to your baseline. The baseline is not moving. You can see how that delay is being calculated. However, your finish date is still the same because this buffer is accommodating the delay. Now, let's go to week 3. Week 3. And suddenly, this is now 100% complete. I'm just give you options, so you can type that directly there as well. That's not 100% complete. And I'm now going to reschedule. So suddenly, we are now ahead of program because we finished this ahead of program. So it's now saying that because we finished this ahead of program, we could start this early and all the other activities can start early. What this has also done is our buffer has now increased from 6 weeks to 7 weeks because we've made a 1 week gain on our program. Okay. Now, let's go to week 4. Week 4, because this man didn't plan that he's going to start early, you know, the fact that you've made gains in your project doesn't necessarily mean that you can consolidate on that gain, because if that succeeding activity is not prepared to start on that day, there's a likelihood you're going to lose some time. So nothing happened on that week because these guys were not ready. And we're going to reschedule. So the time you've gained, you suddenly have lost some time again. See how interesting it is, yeah? Right. Then we go to week 5. You know, let's try another option. You can enter progress. So you can enter progress there. And you could say the overall percent is 20%. 20%. And you can click close. Okay, I'm just using this to show you different methods of entering progress. Okay, so that's 20% again, you reschedule. You've lost a bit of time again. Then you select week 6. Click again there. You can do progress up to, so the progress up to option, assume 100% of progress, okay? When you use any of these dates, preset dates, okay? If I say this is week 6, if I say progress up to week 6, it just assumes 100%. Oh, sorry, it assumes the percent, I repeat, please correct that. It assumes the percent up to that progress drop line. So it calculates a straight line and then assume that percentage. Okay, that's what it does. So that's 52%. However, if I use the same one and I say, oh, even though we are on progress week 6, but the progress is up to week 7, is the progress we assume to be up to week 7, then you can see, even though it's still against that progress drop line, it calculates the progress that is expected up to week 7 there. See that extra, okay, let me turn this on, progress. So you can see that top level is showing you all the progress coding as per what has been progressed, right? So now if I now go and select week 7, so you can see week 7 has shown that we've done some progress as expected up to week 7, but there's still further progress here. I can come. So this is progress. Again, please note that before you can use this progress, enter progress, select that activity before it comes up. So we've shown this, then you can use the progress entry mode. Let's assume again this progress, there's no further progress there. And then I now come to week 8. Okay. And then on week 8, I want to use the other alternative, which is progress entry mode. Now with the progress entry mode allow you to move your mouse on a task and click when the right percentage is shown. So if I select this, I can basically move that until it's 100%. And I can do the same thing, sorry. And I can do the same thing there. Just click and drag when that mouse cursor shows. That's 100%. So in this case, I'm not typing anything. I'm just moving my mouse. See that cursor, when it shows percentage, then you click and drag. Can you see that? Then you reschedule again. So again, suddenly you've made some gain, and that gain goes into your buffer while your finish date remains the same. So that's basically how you enter progress. Any question?
Not so much a question with this one. I think I'm gonna have to revisit the video for this. This is one of the few ones where I've gotten a little lost on or need some recap on. But yeah.
Yeah, that's why we have the videos recorded. Just gives that extra benefit.
Just wanted to clarify. The baseline is to already establish where we originally started, because as you can see, the buffer, as you said, keeps on increasing because
or decreasing depending on the progress.
Depending on the progress. But for this example, because we've been live and progress, we've been setting up the progress live at 100%, and we've been finishing before time. Since we've been finishing before time, the buffer keeps increasing in time, but the baseline is to show us the originally projected the projected plan. Is that correct?
The baseline shows you your planned original dates, your planned original and finished dates for each activities.
Okay, so anyone that comes in mid project, if someone else comes into this project scheme and looks at it and goes, okay, this is what has happened, this is the change. This is just for you. It's just for you to look at it and
it compares. It helps to compare work progress against the activity. That's basically what the baseline is doing, pictorially showing you your performance, your activities performance against that baseline. You say you're going to finish, for instance, that activity here, on that date, but suddenly you are not even finishing on the start of that. Yeah. So that's telling you we are way ahead of your program. You understand?
Yeah.
So it helps to also plan, because if you're ahead of program, then you need to be notifying your subcontractors, your follow-on subcontractors early enough that their start on site to be earlier than as planned.
Okay.
And then that also impacts your material deliveries. If the materials you've booked to be delivered at this time, you need to bring them forward. So sometimes, again, that's telling you something, that sometimes the fact that you are ahead of program does not necessarily mean you are actually ahead, because there are certain project constraints that you can't change. For instance, with Brexit, it's difficult to get materials through. So if you've booked for some materials to be delivered at a certain date and you think you're ahead, and you put a call through and say, oh, I need my materials now, they're just going to tell you, we can't supply you at that early date because it's not realistic, So sometimes fast progress may look like fast, but the time you gain is often lost because certain project constraints have been agreed with your supply chain partners way ahead of time. That makes it not easy for them to make changes to that schedule anymore. You get the point? So certain work may be delayed, eventually. And that's why sometimes when people talk about accelerating, you don't just accelerate for the sake of accelerating. You need to consider several other factors. The fact that you accelerate does not mean you can actually accelerate, because something else may just pull you down. It could be a small issue as a brick angle, which cannot be supplied because you have given them an earlier date, which is later than what you're now asking them to meet up to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand it now. Thank you.
Right. I hope you guys are learning. I mean, I'm trying to be practical and also use project context to explain these things, not for you to just see bars of colors and stuff. That everything we are doing here, they have real life implication in a project environment. They are real life situation that we're actually demonstrating here. Okay. Now let's jump to the last group, which is the editing group, and we'll finish for the day. I'm just looking at my time. I was hoping we can do envelope today, but it's looking very unlikely. I didn't realize this part 2 would take us this long. If I had known, I would have broken it into 2 subparts. But next week we'll treat envelope. Envelope is another huge one as well. So we just treat envelope next week. But there's something else I want to discuss with you guys before we round up for the day. Now, on the editing group, that's the editing group there. So basically, okay, let me go to the next slide. I think I'm not yet there. So that's the editing group. The editing group contains tabs that you can use to quickly edit the content of your program. For instance, you can delete. So let me go to the program to demonstrate this quickly. So if I want to delete, let me use one of these ones I've done here. Say I want to delete activity G1, so once you click on that and you click delete, it deletes it completely. What I'll undo, if I select this bit and I click delete, it deletes the line itself. So please take note, because I want you to take note of that. The fact that you select a bar and you delete does not delete the line. Okay? So there are two different things. There's a difference between selecting the line and deleting, and the difference between selecting the bar and deleting. Okay? So take a note of that. You could also delete allocations. So let's go to the allocation. Let me use this as an example. So that's your allocation. Let's assume I don't want Michael here anymore. I can select that and delete. Okay. Now take a note again. The fact that I did that bar does not knock off that line. So if you want to knock off the line completely, always select the line. Oops, where is it? It's gone? Okay, I think I know why. So always select the line. So you select that, and then you click delete. All right. So you can knock off. Okay, sorry. I think I take that back. That line is not completely gone, despite the line selected for the allocation. But for the activities themselves, you need to learn to select your full lines if you want to knock off your line, and then get rid of the information or the information you want to get rid of. So again, I'll use this as an example to delete. Okay, that goes. Then you can find or replace. Now you use this tab to find and replace information in the program. You may look in the name or the unique task ID or other specified fields. Okay, so let's go to our editing group, and we're going to find activity B by name, and we're going to find it using its unique task ID. Okay. And then after we find it using unique task ID, we're going to replace activity B with the name substructure. Right. So now to find activity B, I'll click on find, and I'm going to type there activity B, and I'm going to say search all. So that's search all there, and then find next. So remember, that is not the only activity B. Now, what it's going to do is going to be as looking through the full program. So we are on milestone. There's an activity B in milestone. That's not what I want. I'll click find next. There's an activity B under summary and expanded activities. That's not what I want. There's an activity B under buffer. That's not what I want. There's an activity B under interruptible tasks. That's not what I want. There is one under assign. I don't want that. There's one under split or join. I don't want that. There's one under insert bar. I don't want that. Let's keep going. There's one under progress group. I don't want that. Then there's one under edit group. So that's the one I'm looking for. Okay. But that's a very long way to searching for information. So how about, I know there are different activity Bs, and I'm actually looking for this exact activity B. I can come to the properties. And when I click on properties, I'll pick the unique task ID there and copy it. Close. Okay. Then I'll click on search. And instead of looking into the name field, I'll select, I want the unique task ID. And then I'll paste that value there. Okay. Wherever I am in the program, once I click find next, it takes me straight to activity B. Can you see that selected there under the editing group? Okay. No matter what I do, click, 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 it will take me nowhere else because I've restricted it to its unique number. So the unique task ID are the unique numbers for each task. Each task has a unique number, and you can use that as a parameter for searching if you want to. Okay. Then you can find and replace. Okay. So if I want, like I said, I want to find the unique task ID of that, and I want to replace it with substructure. And then I click replace. Okay, you see, could not find bar shatter object that. That's because I've not changed the look in to unique task ID. Okay, that will not work because this is limited to just names and notes. So I'm going to type activity B. So if I say replace, it will ask me, is it this activity B I want to replace? If I click on replace, it will replace it. If I say find next, to ask me the next one, is that the one I want? Nope. Find next. Again, we'll keep doing that until we get to the one which we really want to replace. Okay, then I'll click on replace. So if I go back to my editing group, you can see that activity B has now been changed to substructure. Okay. In other notes, you can replace all activity Bs with substructure. If I click on replace all, it replaces all, and it tells you how many numbers of activity Bs has been replaced. If I click OK, and then I close, you can see anywhere you had activity B before has now been changed to substructure, 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 etc. All right. Then let's assume I'm in my buffer and I want to quickly go to the bar. I don't want to be scrolling like this because sometimes you have long program, I don't want to be scrolling like that, you see. You can just select that and you say, go to selection, and it will take you straight to, that buffer there, you see. So wherever you are on the program, it takes you straight there. Then you have the select all. So if I want to select everything there, you can use that. Remember when I wanted to create a buffer, sorry, a baseline, I came to the top level and then I said, so let me knock off this allocation. Then I selected one of it and I pressed Ctrl A on my keyboard, okay, to select everything. Now you don't need to do Ctrl A. You could actually come to your home and say select all. That will select everything in the program. Okay, so that is easy, easy, easy. So let's go back to our program level as we round up. Now, let me knock off my baseline for now. Okay. The other thing we will look at is the select area or area select. So in this case, you can select that, pick it, and you only select what you draw a box on. Can you see that? So it picks both the activities and the links, selects them all. Okay, I want to add this again. You can see it's still highlighted. Can you see? Select that. Let me see, I've not tried this before, if I can do multiple select by using my control key. If I use control key, nope, that doesn't work. So once you draw that box around it, it's select. So be careful so that you don't leave it on, because if you leave it on, you'll be surprised when you do something like that, it just select. So just turn it off when you finish using it, okay? So if you want to select or knock off everything in this box, for instance, everything there, you can just draw that, and then you can say delete, and it knocks it off, okay? But we don't want to do that today. Right, we have 3 more to go. So let's look at the select by filter. This is an interesting one. Click that. A dialog box is going to come up, and it's going to ask you for category. Just a minute, I want to be sure what I'm using in my preparation. So we're using category, progress, okay, late tasks as compared to baseline. Okay, so we're going to use, there are different categories. You can use by task, codes, resources, and this thing should be familiar to you guys now. So, but we're going to use progress this time around. Where are you? Yep, so we're going to use progress. And we're going to say, what are the late tasks compared to the baseline? Okay, before I do, let me trigger my baseline again to demonstrate. So all activities that are in delay compared to their baseline is what will be selected. Does that make sense? So please take note of that. So bottom line is, where is my progress again? I think it's still, yep, there. So bottom line is, all of these activities here will not be selected. Or we could change it and say activities ahead of program, okay? And that will just select, because this is the only thing we've progressed so far, that will just select this one, okay? So let's go back to our home, and then we do that. Again, we select, there are different things, I'm just using this as an example. You can use anything. So completed task. So let's select completed task this time around. And we say, okay. So you can see, sorry, 1 minute, I'm just checking something here. So progress, completed task. Okay, that's fine. It's just not giving me the right filtering. I think that filtering is not properly set up. That was not the one I used. So let me use the one I set up myself. I was hoping that would work. Okay, let me pick progress again. Okay, late task. Okay. Again, that is not functioning. Okay, I may need to revisit that particular tool when next we meet. I'm not sure why that is not responding the way I want it to respond. Okay, but just one more thing I want to try, just to check. 1 minute. Again, progress, completed task. Let me try that one. I'm going to just check the parameters. So progress, completed, task progress. Okay. Okay. I will come back to this. I have a feeling it's responding, but just not responding the way I want it. So I'll come back to this next week to demonstrate how that works. Now, the other one which we'll be looking at is the select links. So the select links, this tab selects the link category you specify in the dialog. So there are different types of links, as you will see. If I come here and I go back one step and I come to link category, there are different links there. Now, the default link is usually the normal link. That's what, whenever you're applying a link, is that normal link that gets entered into your program. However, you could specify different links. Say, for instance, I select this link now. I'm going to do a multiple select. And I want these two links, these three links to be properties. I don't want them to be normal links. I want to change them to procurement links. Okay, and I close. All right, you can see the color has changed now because if I come to my admin, my procurement link is that color. Can you see? It's burgundy, kind of. So that's the color there. Now I could decide that I want to select all procurement links in the program. So I'll click and then I'll select with categories and I'll tick procurement there. Can you see? I'll tick procurement there and I click OK. So you can see it's whenever you select, it changes to green. That's just selecting all procurement links. If I go back again and I want it to select all normal links, and I say, okay, it will select, you can see that has turned back to burgundy. Every other ones have changed to green because they've all been selected. Can you see? All of those links are selected in green. Okay. So that's basically what you'll find when you're using select links. So you can use this when you want to mass delete. For instance, if I want to delete all the links now, of normal links, I'll just press delete there and it goes, all the links are gone. So if you have a program that has a procurement link on it and you want to delete all the procurement links or you want to delete all the design links, just make sure you configure all the links as design links that are design links or procurement links that are procurement links. And then once you select them under the procurement, you can just hit delete and everything goes in one go. All right, so I'm going to go back because I don't want to lose my link. And then we'll go to the last one. The last one is defined in project view. So it's not any difficult. So in project view is this box here, which shows you the hierarchy, of your program. Yeah, so that's basically what the project view is about. It shows you the hierarchy. So it shows your hierarchy up to summary level, not activities. So you won't find activities there, just summary bar or expandable bar. Okay. So if I want to find buffer on my project view, I want to know where it is on my project view, I can just click on that. So what am I finding? I'm looking for buffer on the chart hierarchy. And I click next. So you can see it selects buffer there. So it tells me where it is on my hierarchy. Okay, when you have a very huge program and you're looking for something on the project view, you can use that to find. If you're looking for milestone, you can find next. It points you to the milestone summary. Okay, so that's basically what you use that for. Again, next week I will have a look at that filter, select by filter, and see what the challenge is, but it wasn't responding the way I programmed it to respond. All right, any question? That brings us to the end of today's training. And what have we learned? We've learned how to manage activities, change activity types, assign cost and resources. We also learned how to use Hammock, create recurring tasks, insert tasks between two activities, and use text annotation. Furthermore, we learned how to apply progress on activities and how to easily make changes to your program. So, like I said at the very beginning, when you master all of these tools in the home menu, you are in a very good place as a planner. In fact, as a planner, you will hardly use 40% of those tools week in, week out. So understanding those basics are very good, for you, and it puts you in a very good footing for you to practice your trade. So that's where I'll put an end to today's session before we invite Mr. Weke on board. Any question on the last few groups that we discussed?
No question for me.
No question, no.
Yeah, so I was hoping we'll take envelope today. So, but hopefully by next week we'll deal with the envelope. So if there are no further questions, can we have Mr. Weke? Weke, are you there? Is Victor here? Let me check.
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Vic.
Hello.
Hold on, Mr. Weke, before you shoot, just a minute. I'm just going to stop the recording.